Hello and welcome to Cyber Safety News. I'm Adam Blue. Thanks for joining. Today's episode is going to get pretty scary as there's been ransomware attacks against medical facilities, which seems pretty scary because that puts lives at stake. It's more than just getting money, but it affects lives. Also, live sporting events affected by cybersecurity threats as well. We'll also talk about known exploits and how attackers tend to go after very common ways of getting into systems, being things that aren't patched. But anyway, thanks for joining the channel. Subscribe if you haven't. Let's get started here. First, cyber attack disrupts hospital computer systems across U.S., hindering services. A cyber attack has disrupted hospital computer systems across the United States, forcing emergency rooms in several states to close on Thursday and ambulances to be diverted. Many primary care services remain closed on Friday as security experts work to determine the extent of the problem and resolve it. The data security incident began Thursday at facilities operated by Prospect Medical Holdings, which is based in California and has hospital and clinics there and in Texas, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Pennsylvania. Upon learning of this, we took our systems offline to protect them and launched an investigation with the help of third-party cybersecurity specialists, the company said in a statement. While our investigation continues, we are focused on addressing the pressing needs of our patients as we work diligently to return to normal operations as quickly as possible. Cyber attacks and data hacking have been on the rise globally in recent years. In the U.S., such attacks have compromised the security of universities, public school systems, hospitals, local governments, and federal agencies. And, the scary thing about that is, it's one thing to try to hack into a system, maybe steal some funds, get personal information. But when you're getting into medical networks, hospitals, who knows what kind of effect that could have on people's lives? Is that hooked up to some sort of system that requires, uptime that a attack would kind of either shut off or impact and affect someone's life? And that's where it gets scary. But experts say there's already been $450 million in ransom payments globally in just the first half of 2023, a marked increase from 2022 when payments are estimated to be less than $500 million for the entire year. So that's already a huge increase. And that's pretty scary. So I would say that when it comes to cyber security threats, this is probably the scariest. Hope anyone that may have been impacted by this is okay. And then people are safe from that. Moving on, Microsoft flags growing cybersecurity concerns for major sporting events. So that's pretty interesting. Microsoft is warning of the threat malicious cyber actors pose to stadium operations, warning that the cyber risk surface of live sporting events is rapidly expanding. Information on athletic performance, competitive advantage, and personal information is a lucrative target, the company said in a cyber signals report shared with the Hacker News. Sports teams, major league, and global sporting associations and entertainment venues has a trove of valuable information desirable to cyber criminals. Unfortunately, this information can be vulnerable at scale due to the number of connected devices and interconnected networks in these environments. The company specifically singled out hospitals delivering critical support and health services for fans and players as being targets of ransomware attacks resulting in service disruptions. So we're actually seeing where there's this overlap of the ransomware attacks that were done to the hospitals. We're seeing live sporting events. The things these have in common are all of the data. When it comes to live sporting events, there's a lot of eyes on there in terms of not only audience, but players, money involved. So really, there's a lot there that an attacker would want to go against or to attack against just due to the nature of it. So to look at this more specifically, to defend against such attacks, Microsoft is recommending that companies disable unnecessary ports and ensure proper network scanning for rogue or ad hoc wireless access points. Attendees secure apps and devices with latest updates. That's a big one. And patches. Avoid accessing sensitive data over public Wi-Fi and refrain from scanning QR codes from untrusted sources. That's a pretty good thing to think about there, QR codes. Commerce systems ensure point of sale devices are patched up to date and connected to a separate network. And stadium operations implement logical network segmentation to create divisions between IT and OT systems and limit cross-access to devices. Yeah, because it's very common just to have anything that's connected to the internet all connected together in a sort of system a compartment system. But what this is saying here is to divide that stuff depending on what the use case is for each system. Keep them divided. That could be financial. That could be public access to something. That could be IT access to something. That could be more business end things. So yeah, it's very interesting where we kind of see this crossover from the medical ransomware to live sporting events because of all the eyes, even more personal information. And there's so many different types of devices that could be accessed during a live event that something could be unpatched. That moves on to our next, that's very similar to this. Major cybersecurity agencies collaborate to unveil 2022's most exploitable vulnerabilities. So CVE is something that's used in terminology for cyber attacks, cyber vulnerability, and exploits. So this, you would see CVE and a bunch of numbers thrown together. That's kind of spelling out what a certain attack is. And there's a list of CVEs. To the average person, this doesn't really matter. The CVE and understanding what that is very important for people that are in the IT or cybersecurity space when they need to be familiar with a certain exploit. And we see a list of things from here. Again, the average person doesn't understand this terminology, like proxy shell, log4 shell, remote code execution. I mean, there's a lot of things that the average person doesn't understand. So you kind of think, well, then what do I do about it as an average person that doesn't have to dive into cybersecurity? Well, something that I am seeing a trend in these news topics, and we can finalize here, is timely patching reduces the effectiveness of known exploitable vulnerabilities, possibly decreasing the pace of malicious cyber actor operations and forcing pursuit of more costly and time-consuming methods, such as developing zero-day exploits or conducting software supply chain operations, the agency noted. So among the most common exploits that these threat actors are going to attack, what seems to be very common here is vulnerable systems that are like unpatched. And that brings me to kind of my overall takeaway from here, and probably a really good cybersecurity tip to use moving forward. I'm sure it's common that you will get an updated notification on your phone, your computer, that says, hey, there's an update available. Go ahead and download, update, install. Sometimes you don't want to because it's annoying. It might change something in your system. You might then have to wait for your computer to restart. This is very common. I've gone through this as well. But over time, I've learned that there's a reason these patches come out. And it's because there's a known exploit that they're able to patch. I would suggest for anyone watching this that anytime that you come across a notification on your phone, your desktop, your computer, any application you have, and it says, there's a security update, or not even that, just that there's an update in general. Usually you don't say it's a security update, but there's an update in general, go ahead and do the update. Most likely it's going to close a gap that has been found by that service provider that is an exploit that attackers can use. That's why you see sometimes that certain versions of iOS, Windows, Android are considered out of date, or they have to come out with a new version. And we see new versions all the time. And, sometimes we kind of just assume rather quickly that, oh, this is just a way for them to get us to use, a newer thing that's added in, a newer software. And a lot of times software is made in a new version specifically because they have to rewrite code that will get around exploits that are just part of old code. So if you see an update, it's probably best that you do download it, secure, patch your system. And this is going to be, again, for your phones. This could be Android or iOS. It doesn't matter. This could be your Windows computer. It could be your Mac computer. Even just apps you're using in general. It might not be the actual hardware or, I guess the update for the OS of the hardware. It might be like an app you're using. Let's say you have a security camera app and you get an update on the Play Store, the Apple App Store, and it says, this security camera app has an update. You might not think it's necessary to update it, or it might, cause some issues where you have to go in and reconfigure it, but it is worth it because if the attacker knows about an exploit with an IoT device, Internet of Things, like a camera, they're going to exploit that and use it however they can. That could be the route to get to another part of your system. It might not be the camera themselves that they're needing to use, but there could be an exploit with a device connected to your network that then they can get to another device. And then maybe that can get them to your desktop computer that then maybe not be patched or up to date. And then they can exploit that as well. So, hopefully you can take these tips seriously when it comes to updating and patching. I know historically people are scared to do patching because it could mess up something they already have in place. And it's never, just like the MFA I talked about in the last episode, check that out if you haven't. There's not the correct communication about it. It's not really communicated that, yeah, this is something you need to do because it keeps you safe and secure. Usually it's just a passing, security patch, security update, and you don't really understand the severity of it. But we could see, like with the ransomware attack to a medical facility or the live sporting events where there's so many internet devices that could be connected. There are so many ways that attackers could get into systems just because something isn't updated properly. So hopefully you take that seriously. Hopefully you enjoyed the information here I had to share. Please let me know in the comments what you think. Thanks for tuning into the Cyber Safety News Show. I'm Adam Blue, and we'll talk later.